Hey, I'm going to answer the second question in this little series of common questions that we get asked through, email or social media, face to face, talking to potential agents and clients and that sort of thing. Question number two is, how did you start Recland? Cool question, because I think it's a reasonably cool answer. In February of 2010 is when and February 22nd, as a matter of fact, so our 8-year anniversary just went by a couple of days ago. I started Reclam. I'll tell you how I did it. I got my real estate license 2 years prior to that, to the day, as a matter of fact, and was working for another land broker. And the whole goal from the very beginning was, as soon as 2 years had gone by and I could qualify for my broker's license, I was going to get my broker's license and start my own company. And the gentleman that I was working with, he knew that plan. I was in agreement with that plan. He even told me, Pat, when you get your broker's license, I'm gonna close my company down and put my license with you, which he ultimately did. He enjoyed selling land. He didn't like the business part of running the brokerage as much as he did just being with people and showing property. So that was the plan. So the day that I could, the day at 2 years, I went to Lake Charles, Louisiana to take my test for Louisiana broker. I passed that test that day and drove from Lake Charles over to Baton Rouge the same day, walked in there with my check and my sheet showing I had passed the broker's test, and they issued my broker's license right there because I'd already done the paperwork subject to me passing that test. So I'm glad I passed that test because I kind of had everything all lined up. And so I went in the office there in Baton Rouge, gave them my check and my certificate showing I passed, and about 30 minutes later I walked out a licensed real estate broker in the state of Louisiana. Got in my truck heading back to home in West Monroe and made a phone call to the radio station here in Monroe. A large, they have several radio stations in their group, and called and said, hey guys, turn on the ads. I had already pre-recorded some radio ads and had them set to start that day. I had to call and tell them to turn it on. I had to make sure I passed my broker's test, but Recland was born that day. I'd already done all the paperwork with the Secretary of State. The LLC was formed, the logo was done, the business cards were done, the letterhead was done, signs were done, advertising was ready to go at the radio station, and I called and said, hey, turn it on. I remember her name was Peggy Sullivan. She's a State Farm agent now. Some of you are going to know her, but I called and said, to get the radio spots going. So driving home from Baton Rouge, the radio spots had started. We were in business about 30 minutes after I left the commissioner, the real estate commission office in Baton Rouge, and that's how we started. My first agent, Drew Manning, still with me, top guy. Just visited with him a minute ago. Just had a deal closed the other day, yesterday as a matter of fact, and he was my very first agent. So as soon as I had my license in place, told Drew. He then did the paperwork so that he could transfer his license to Recland, and we were off and running, me and Drew. And I remember our very first deal, it was a little 6-acre tract on Dan Leonard Road in Ouachita Parish, Louisiana. 6 acres out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, banjo music's playing when you're going down the road. It was that kind of remote tract, but that was our very first Recland deal. And that was 8 years ago, February 22nd, I believe. So anyway, that's how we started Recland. We're a little further down the road now, but we're still who we are and still doing the same thing. We still sell 6 acres out on Dan Leonard Road if somebody wanted us to. We're not too big for our britches, but that's how it started. So it's been fun, and look forward to a lot more fun things about it. Bye.